Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. My name's Kate if you're new, and today I would like to discuss the books that I would like to read in 2022. Not necessarily all of them, but I've decided that I have two main reading goals for this whole year. One of them is what I am calling the reread to finish category, which are series that I have read the first or even sometimes the first few books in a series so many years ago that I really need to just start over and reread them, and then I can read the next or last book in the series and finish them. And the second category is the standalones category. So on the complete opposite side of the spectrum, books where there is no series to finish. They are the only book that there is. I'm gonna start with the reread to finish category. So these are series where I've read at least the first book sometime before 2022, and there is another book out that is, as far as I know, the last book intended for the series. So the first of these is one that I had no idea was going to be a thing, which is the Graceling series came out with a new book. I read this series when Bitterblue was gonna come out, which was apparently 2012. So that was 10 years ago. And I read them pretty close together, I think, because Bitterblue was about to come out and I got a advanced reader copy of it. And so I decided to just finish the whole series kind of all in one go. And I really, really liked it at the time. They are a kind of weird series. They're young adult fantasy. And the first book is set in this kingdom where a certain percentage of the population, kind of like X-Men Mutations, they're born with like some kind of supernaturally good ability, and they range from things like being supernaturally good at swimming to like being supernaturally good at murder. So the main character is a Graceling who is the niece of the king, I believe. And her grace is kind of along the murdery lines. And so her king uses her as his enforcer. Oh, and the way that you can tell that someone is a Graceling, I believe, is that they have two different colored eyes. So anyway, I really enjoyed this book. It has a really fucked up villain, which I kind of saw coming, but was still handled in a way that struck me, and I still remember as being super chilling. So that one was super good. And then the sequel is more of a companion, Fire, which it takes place in a different kingdom, kind of vaguely in the same world. But instead of there being people that are Gracelings, there are beings that are called monsters, which are essentially supernaturally beautiful versions of creatures that are supernaturally dangerous because they are able to ensnare the minds of people and force them to be subservient to them to allow them to get in close and then kill them, essentially. And so the main character, Fire, is one of the only, if not the only, known human monsters. And so she is struggling with the fact that people just want to please her magically without her really doing anything, and she doesn't really want that level of power, but she's also, I believe, the princess. So yeah, it was, again, really interesting, but I read that so long ago that I would really need to reread it. Bitterblue then is kind of more related to Graceling again. It takes place in the same kingdom and deals with a lot of the aftermath of the villain in this book. So this has some pretty heavy traumatic themes in it, but I found it really well written, really well handled, just really moving. So I thought that the series was done because the last book came out in 2012. 10 years ago. And then I walked into a Barnes & Noble and saw this book, Winterkeep, and it turns out to be the next book after Bitterblue. And I'm just like, what the hell, Kristen Kishore? Hi, baby.
Hi.
Hi, how you doing? And we're back. All right. So obviously I have to read Winterkeep because I enjoyed the rest of the series so much. But it's been a full decade since I read any of these, so I'm gonna need to refresh my memory on that one. The next reread to finish series is thankfully a short series to begin with, but it is the Strange the Dreamer duology by Laini Taylor. I read Strange the Dreamer I don't remember, some number of years ago. And I liked it, and I don't remember a ton about it. But I do remember really liking Strange the Dreamer because I like books about gods and the fall of gods and the aftermath of the fall of divinity and all of that stuff. So I really want to reread this one. I think it'll be good, especially to reread book one with some foreknowledge of what happens in this book, because I remember being a little bit confused in the beginning. But then obviously I need to read Muse of Nightmares, which will probably hurt. But hey, we've trusted Laini Taylor before, and she hasn't let us down yet. So we'll see. We'll see if she can wrap this one up. Okay, next is one that I'm not going to talk about too long because I've mentioned it before, but I need to reread The King of Atolia before I can finish Return of the Thief. This is the Queen's Thief series by Megan Whalen Turner. The point of view character for Return of the Thief, wow, you cannot read that title at all, can you? That is a red font on a red background. That does not show up at all. Return of the Thief is what this one's called. But the point of view character is a minor character in The King of Atolia, and I don't remember anything about him. So I need to reread King of Atolia, which will not be difficult because Costas is my favorite. I love him so much. He is my precious Roman child. And also him observing the relationship between Eugenides and Atolia as an outside perspective without the backstory that we as readers know is just like chef's kiss immaculate, because they're pulling off a super long con about their relationship and he buys it for a while, but we know differently. So, oh, it's so good. So anyway, King of Atolia is a delightful reread experience. And then I need to read Return of the Thief, which is terrifying to me because that means that the series is over and I have to deal emotionally with the fact that the series is over. Yeah, anyway. So next on my reread to finish is the Trickster series by Eden Robinson. I currently only own the first two of this series, but I have already pre-bribed my friend who lives in Canada to smuggle me a copy of book 3 as soon as it is available in paperback, which I believe is like April or possibly March. Not too long from now. Anyway, so I read Son of a Trickster on audiobook years ago when they had the original audiobook narrator. Then for some reason, when book 2 came out, they decided to change audiobook narrators and re-recorded book 1 with a new narrator and recorded the rest of the series that way. Now, I'm sure if that was the only narrator that you ever heard for the audiobooks, they're fine. But to me, who had the original audiobook narrator, they're just wrong. Like, they're wrong. They're offensively wrong. And so I couldn't do it. So I had to get them in physical copy, which meant bribing said Canadian friend to send them to me because they are not available in physical copy in the US because of weird international copyright nonsense things. So anyway, Son of a Trickster is about a young teen named Jared. He is indigenous to Canada. I can't remember which tribe he is from, and it does not say on the back. But anyway, he is kind of the troubled kid of the school. He's like the kid that sells pot brownies. He's the kid who's like mom, has a sort of rotating door of terrible boyfriends, but then sort of magic starts to kind of slip into the sides of his life, and it turns out that he might be the son of a trickster god. This book in particular doesn't have a ton of magic in it. It really is just kind of trickling in on the side. I have heard that that changes for Trickster Drift, that there is much more magic in it. And then book 3, which I don't remember the name of, because I don't own it yet. Return of the Trickster, there we go. So book 3, Return of the Trickster, I don't know anything about because I haven't read book 2 yet, so I haven't really looked into the synopsis of book 3 because I don't want to be spoiled for it when I haven't read book 2 yet. You know how like the synopsis can spoil things? Anyway, this is a series that I really fell in love with. The first book, I really fell in love with Jared. He's a very soft and troubled teen, and he has a really good heart, but he just also has a lot of things to be working through. So really want to get this one done now that book 3 is going to be out in paperback and the series will be done. Okay, so the last of my reread to finish is a series that I did not realize was ever going to be a series. It is The Goblin Emperor by Katherine Addison. I read book one of this apparent series years ago, and I thought that it was a standalone and that it was only ever going to be a standalone. It is about a young man named Maya, who is a son of the emperor, but like the last in line for the throne. And all of his siblings are half-siblings. There are many different mothers amongst his many half-siblings. And he and his mother were exiled years ago from court and have lived kind of out on the outskirts of nowhere for many, many years. And then he suddenly gets a knock on the door, possibly in the middle of the night. Can't remember. It's been a while since I've read this. And he's told that his father and all of his half-siblings have been killed in an airship explosion, and he is the only surviving heir, and he gets whisked away to become the new emperor in the palace when he has spent so many years outside of palace life. So he gets thrown into this Shark Tank and is basically told sink or swim. And the way that he manages to navigate that nightmare is really endearing to me. He has a difficult time figuring out who to trust. Not a lot of people is the answer. But he is so gentle and sweet and so different than a lot of the sort of backstabbing court life has been. And so part of his job is figuring out who else is sick of the way that court has been run for years and figuring out who he can kind of get on his side. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. The second book is more of a novella, but it is The Witness for the Dead. I don't remember much, if anything, about the main character of this one. I think it's supposed to be more of a companion than a direct sequel because it does have a different main character. But it's, yeah, if you read here, it says, in the world of the Goblin Emperor. But I really loved the Goblin Emperor, so I would love to read more in the world. And it also gives me an excuse to reread this great book. So, yes, that is a plan for this year. All right, now, if that weren't enough, I also want to read some standalones because they are great sort of palate cleansers in between series, if you will. One and done, you know? It's nice. The first of these is The Raven Tower by Ann Leckie. I have read basically all of Ann Leckie's sci-fi work. This is her first fantasy, and so I'm interested to see what she does. I think this one also has something to do with dead gods, but I don't know. Where is there's no actual description. For centuries, the kingdom of Iridan has been protected by the god known as the Raven, is all it says. Okay. Gods meddle in the fates of men, men play with the fates of gods, and a pretender must be cast down from the throne in this masterful first fantasy. Anyway, so it has to do with gods and ravens and crows, which is an aesthetic that I really like in my divinities. Raven Queen, hey. And yeah, I think I'll be into this one. I'm hoping that this one is as queer as her sci-fi has been, because she, in her sci-fi novels at least, really has loved to play with gender and ways that are really interesting, and gender and sexuality in general. So hoping that there's some of that in there. But I don't actually know, because I haven't really looked into that. Next is one that I just recently found at a Half Price Books. I was there near my birthday, and so I got a couple things. It is V. Schwab's The Near Witch. I don't know a ton about this one, except that it is a standalone. This one seems like it might have some spooky forest vibes, like the witch in the hut in the forest kind of vibes, which is a vibe that I'm into. So I think that I will like what V.E. Schwab does with that, considering that I really liked V.E. Schwab's Shades of London series, The Darker Shade of Magic. So when I happened to come across this in a Half Price Books, I was just like, yep, this is going on the list of standalones to do this year. All right, next is one that I have had for so many years that I either need to read it this year or I need to get rid of it and admit that I'm never going to read it. It is An Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson. This one, I believe, is kind of a fantasy, like fairy tale retelling, or at least it's heavily fae involved. But that's about all I know about it. And I know that it is young adult, so I know that I can read it quickly, but also that it might be a little bit immature for me and it might not have the depth that I'm looking for, because I've just not been feeling YA a lot recently. So we'll see. We'll see if this one happens. So next on my standalone list, which I suppose I could have put it earlier, to make it kind of a Katherine Addison year, I would like to read The Angel of the Crows by Katherine Addison. This is an alternate history fantasy of London where there are, I believe, fallen angels. Yeah, so it seems like it's kind of an urban fantasy where it's also like Jack the Ripper era London. And so there's like vampires and werewolves and angels, and mostly they live in harmony, but then an angel can fall, and that's like a big kind of nuclear bomb-like explosion. This is actually taking place during the Jack the Ripper murders, but London is guarded by an angel, the Angel of the Crows. Again, mixing crow and raven imagery with my divinity things, an aesthetic that I'm into. And I like Katherine Addison, so we'll see how this one goes. Okay, so I think last on my standalone list is one that, I mean, this whole list is ambitious because, let's be real, I have, we're like midway through January at the time of filming this, and I have spent most of the year just reading Witcher fan fictions. Like, I think I've read a book, and it was a gay romance novel. So that's where I'm at. So these goals are all very aspirational, but I do have a summer vacation coming up when I will have like more than a month free off of work, and I can really breeze through a lot of books when I have the time and the motivation. So the last on my somewhat ambitious list of standalones that I want to finish is Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. I have a bit of a history with this book, a bit of a history with Samantha Shannon, in that I read book one of her kind of post-apocalyptic urban fantasy thing, The Bone Season, that one. I read book one of that series and did not like it. So I decided that I wasn't going to read the rest of them, and according to a friend of mine, they don't get better. So I'm not going to be reading that, but I do want to finish Priory of the Orange Tree. I started it on audiobook and I was getting lost because there were too many different characters and I just couldn't seem to remember who was who and where we were and etc. And then I borrowed it from the library, and then I realized that I was gonna take way longer than I had from the library to read that book. So I ended up returning it to the library, so now I own it in physical copy. And while I'm focusing on standalones, I would really love to get this done. It's such a chonky boy. It is such a chonky boy, but I really want to read this because it has dragons and it's gay, and I know the gay is more of a subplot, but dragons and gay, that's great. That's a great combo for me. So I want to do it. I want to get through this one. Realizing that 3 of those standalones had Corvid imagery, because there was Angel of the Crows, Enchantment of Ravens, and the Raven Tower. So that's another sub-theme in and of itself. Alright, that is going to be everything for this video. I debated having a third category of series that I just want to start at some point this year, not necessarily finish. There's some that I even own like the entire trilogy of that I haven't started. So I might make that a separate video if anyone is interested. Let me know. And let me know what some of your reading goals are this year. Do you do kind of yearly reading goals? Are you more month to month? Do you not really set goals and just kind of mood read? Let me know. I like to mood read, but also have goals with which to mood read from, if that makes any sense. So this list that I've composed for the year, I don't have any set time of what month I'm going to read them in. I just read them as they come up and as they feel like the thing that I feel like reading next. So yeah, that's how I do it. But that is going to be all for today, and I hope to see you guys soon with another video. Thanks for watching, y'all. Bye. Is there a cat up there? There is. Oh. You guys can maybe barely see it. There's a cat right up there. Hi, Natasha. Oh, damn it. I have the wrong hair. Oh, why did I decide to read so many fucking books this year? Oh my god. Fuck. Yeah, I feel like I deserve that one. Hi. You're yelling. Do you mind? Do you mind not yelling? I'm right here. Do you want attention? Because I'm right here. No? Great.